Hi friends, my name is Olivia. I make videos about books on the internet, and today's video is gonna be like the first in what I hope can kind of be a monthly, sort of semi-monthly series thing on my channel. A while ago, kind of in 2017, I made this resolution just to read more short stories because I really like reading short stories. I always really enjoy them when I read them, but I felt like I wasn't really prioritizing it in my reading. I was like really focused on just like reading books. And so I kind of made that resolution, and I've actually really stuck to it, and I've been reading a lot of short stories in the last few months, and it's been really great, and I want to have a way to share with you guys what I've read. I kind of want to start doing monthly, semi-monthly short story recommendation videos on my channel, where I just kind of give you guys the best of the short stories that I've read in the last few months. So that's what we'll be doing today. This is the first video in this series, if you will. I hope that I can stick with this in the year because I'm really excited to share with you guys. I have 4 stories here. Most of them I've read online, so I'll link them down below. If they're part of a short story collection, I'll leave like a link to the Goodreads page. I think that's all the intro we need, so let's just jump into the video. So the first short story I have to recommend, I read as part of a larger short story book collection thing, and that is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, and this short story is the title short story of this short story collection, which is The Bloody Chamber. This whole short story collection is kind of like retellings of classic fairy tales, but like with a kind of, for lack of a better word, like erotic and sexual spin, which makes them like really intense and really interesting. And The Bloody Chamber is a retelling of the Bluebeard story. In this story, very similar to the original story, we have kind of this young, naive bride who's just been married off to this very rich, enigmatic older man. She knows he's had like a lot of wives before, but she doesn't know what has happened to them. And as she kind of gets to this new house and meets her new husband, she starts kind of uncovering the kind of secrets behind this man, the truth of who he is as a person and what has happened to his previous wives. What is so amazing about Angela Carter's writing and her stories in general is like the prose. I feel like the prose is almost like a character in itself in terms of like how just intense and lyrical and poetic and colorful it is. It really takes center stage, and that is, I think, where the real pleasure is in this story. The plot and like the twist in the story is super interesting as well, but I just feel like I was mesmerized by her prose, honestly. It really lent a lot of intensity and like tension and nervousness to this story, but it was also just super beautiful in its description of like people and places and the environment. The next short story I have to recommend, I think might be my favorite on this list. I have such warm feelings about this story, and that is The Prairie Wife by Curtis Sittenfeld. I read this on the New Yorker website a while back, and it really stuck in my mind. Our main character in The Prairie Wife kind of is obsessed with this sort of Martha Stewart-esque celebrity who does like kind of cooking shows and like home, like home care, like home cultivation, whatever you want to call it. She's a very like pristine, perfect, feminine kind of celebrity, and she's obsessed in the way that you kind of like stalk someone's Instagram and Twitter and know all about them but won't actually cop to like caring about this celebrity. So it's that kind of interesting relationship that I think a lot of us might have with celebrities that we don't really care to admit. And as the story goes on, we kind of learn about this woman's personal connection to this celebrity, how they met each other in the past, how each of them, whether they know it or not, really formative to each other's like sexuality and growth and personhood today. There's just something so relatable to this story that I can't really put into words. I just felt myself connecting with the relationships that I saw and connecting with the feelings of like insecurity and inadequacy and anxiety that this story kind of depicted, particularly in a romantic relationship setting, that I thought was like really beautiful and honest and wasn't trying to romanticize or dramatize anything. It was just like a very honest and hopeful look at relationships, especially as they develop over time. And it was also a very special look at female sexuality that I think we don't get to see in a lot of stories, and the way that female sexuality kind of develops and grows into like adulthood. The next story I'm recommending, I was recommended by a coworker who said this is a perfect story. So I went in with high expectations, and I really was not let down. This really is like the perfect story, honestly. This is The Point by Charles D'Ambrose. I believe it was published in the New Yorker in 1990, so it's not online. But there's this podcast New Yorker does where they have writers read stories they love. It's only about an hour long with this story, but I was totally enthralled the entire time, so I highly recommend listening to it. I think it really enhanced the experience. This story is about a 13-year-old boy who lives with his mother in this kind of richer, upper-class beach town. His mother throws a lot of lavish parties, and it's always the boy's job to kind of walk home these drunk adults. He's done it many, many times, and in this experience he learns a lot about these adults. When they're drunk, they're always kind of like confessing their secrets and their life stories to him and problems like their relationship and with their children. And so he has kind of unofficially become like this secret keeper for all of these adults. And of course, as the story goes on, we learn that his father was a Vietnam vet who killed himself, and he was the one who discovered his father's body. And so he has such a clear view of these adults. And at the same time, as we learn about him, we kind of can see that he hasn't quite come to terms with his father's death and the way that it shaped him as a person. The prose is perfect. The creation of these characters in a very short span of time is perfect. It was just a really super interesting and specific way to kind of explore issues and emotions and trauma, and like my coworker said, it really is perfect. The last story I have to recommend, I'm almost recommending out of obligation. I think this was published at the end of 2017, and I saw a lot of people tweeting about it. And I follow like bookish people, so it's not super surprising, but like way more than you would ever expect out of a popular short story, and that is Cat Person. It was published in the New Yorker last year, and there is a lot to say about this story. I won't say too much. I think the pleasure is in reading it yourself. Cat Person is about a young girl, college kind of age, works at a movie theater, who meets a guy at that movie theater. They sort of start texting, talking, and they eventually go out and have a date, have sex. And I just think this story really captures an unfortunate experience that a lot of women have in dating and in sex, in which you really see this female character's emotions towards this person kind of become complicated. She learns a lot more about him as their date goes on. She sees some sides of him that aren't really flattering, but she kind of gets into this position where she feels just like obliged to kind of play along and just go with this date because she flirted with him, she got herself in the situation, she might as well just kind of play it out and see what happens. I had this urge after I read this story to send it to every single woman that I know, because there were so many intense just nuggets of truth in this story that no matter what your experience in dating or with men is, you can just relate to and like understand this female character so well. And I love how the characters in the story, neither of them I think are very good people. You don't necessarily root for them or want to see them have a happy ending. You don't even particularly like the female character, but you see the experience she's going through, and it just mirrors so many things that I myself have experienced, that I know female friends of mine have experienced, and it puts into words this kind of anxiety that can surround relationships that we often don't speak about, don't even put words to, don't even really acknowledge, but can be very like insidious. So those are the 4 short stories that I highly, highly recommend. I hope you guys liked this video. Since reading these stories, I've read many more stories that I hope to recommend in the future, so hopefully this will become a regular series on my channel, and hopefully y'all will like that. If you've read these short stories, please, I would love to hear your thoughts on them, because I have so many complex thoughts. Thank you guys, as always, so much for watching my videos, and I will talk to you soon with another one.